Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 4 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. If you have a story you'd like to contribute to the podcast, you can email it to us at karmastoriespod@gmail.com. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Bard24601. Who is really watching the clock? Backstory. I used to work in hotels years ago. The hotel I worked at has a policy where there must be at least one staff member at the hotel 24/7. I worked the unenviable but fireproof position of part-time front desk and relief night audit, so I never knew when I was going to be working. 16-hour shifts were uncommon but expected of me when the main night audit called in sick. The story. I had a middle manager who got bored and liked to ruffle feathers for entertainment. Annoying, but I only had to deal with it for 2 to 3 days a week because no one else wants to cover the night audit, so I suck it up and deal. They also loved to sleep in and would routinely call in late in the mornings. I really couldn't stand them, but they were my boss. So after giving the essential information and passed the torch from the night audit to the morning manager and crew, I clocked out promptly and got out of the line of fire. So I thought. I get a call waking me up at 11 a.m. because I was sleeping off my graveyard shift that night. I was told to report to the hotel for a disciplinary meeting that includes middle manager and the general manager of the hotel, my boss's boss. I asked them what the meeting was about, and they replied that it was due to my excessive use of overtime. I then asked them if I could come in before my shift that night so that I could actually get some sleep for my next graveyard shift. They replied that I would have to arrive within the hour. It took me 30 minutes drive to get there. Or they would tack on insubordination or some other nonsense to my file as well. I needed the job for rent, so I complied and got to the hotel half asleep. As I'm driving, I'm trying to figure out how to explain away the nice overtime additions on my paycheck. Took me a solid 10 minutes, but I remembered that the middle manager had yet to actually show up on time for the past month. That wakes me up more, and I show up to the meeting absolutely cheerful and smiling, much to the displeasure of the GM and my boss. Boss goes on a tirade about how abusing company time is horrible in many different ways. I no longer have my crap-eating grin, but I'm also unfazed by the dressing down and let them blow out their steam that was likely put on them by payroll or HR about how my paychecks were getting too fat for their liking. This is confirmed by a shorter but more professional dressing down by my GM about me costing the company excess money, and that I should know better because I run the hotel's books. I calmly state that all of the overtime statements were true and that I would like to compare my punch times to the staffing schedule and the start and end times of the people I was relieving in the evening and who was relieving me in the morning. I explained to them that I was only staying on until the next crew relieved me, and I had sufficient time to brief the incoming crew per the corporate policy of the hotel. Must be manned 24/7. They do and see that there is only a 3 to 5 minute overlap between my shift and the person relieving me. GM looks pissed, and middle manager went from smug to looking like they got their hand caught in the cookie jar, as their clock-in showed usually 7-ish and sometimes even 7:30 when their start time was 6. I was then told by the GM that they would reimburse me for the minutes to drive to and from the hotel, as well as the duration of the meeting, and that the write-up was being dropped in light of new information. Fallout, middle manager still made my life miserable until I left, but at least they never gave me grief about overtime after that, and actually started showing up to work at 6 a.m. and not snoozing until 7. My paychecks were less, but at least I got more sleep because I was now better able to beat the morning commute at the end of my shift. OP added an edit down at the bottom. It says, edit, I knew my paychecks were coming in hefty for my wage. I never made a stink about staying late, because hotel pay may be 5 cents more than minimum wage if you work graveyard shifts. I kept my mouth shut about my check. I needed that extra cash and dealt with the sleep deprivation for the almost guaranteed additional hour of overtime at the expense of a lazy and petty boss. I had my moment of how do I save myself on the way to work and was conveniently able to throw my rabble-rousing manager under the bus in one go. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called SnooRegrets1386. It says, as a former graveyard worker 7 to 11, it really grinds my gears when the employers expect you to attend mandatory meetings and training in the middle of sleepy time. They know your hours. Expecting employees that are coming off an all-nighter to be at work 4 hours after you've gone home is bonkers. Night shift working already screws with your sleep. I've known people that left to go home and never made it because they fell asleep while driving. Sleepy driving is equivalent to drunk driving. Waiting for someone to show up so you can go home is difficult, and double when they are consistently late. Had a girl following my shift that was always 10 to 15 minutes late, or just called in at shift time to claim they can't get an Uber. Grrr. It's been over 2 years since I've worked there, and I just want to say, hey Keithra, get a bike. It's interesting to me in this story that OP's boss agreed to have this meeting with OP, knowing darn well that they're the ones that don't come in on time. Wouldn't they be the ones signing off on OP's paychecks and OP's hours that would get them the overtime in the first place? How they didn't realize that they were getting a front row seat at the gallows, only it wasn't OP being strung up, it was them, is just beyond me. This story comes to us from Pine Scented Sewer Rat. Completely delete a client's company website and email services? Are you sure? Okay. This happened a few years ago, so details are a bit fuzzy, and chat is paraphrased. I was Tier 2 tech support for a company that handles my country's largest ISP's entire professional email services, all its DNS management services, and a large portion of its website building and web hosting services. This company is tiny, minute, not even a blip in the radar, but has power that I will likely never again hold at my fingertips. One day, a ticket comes in from ISP. Big client company is moving away from our proprietary email service and into Microsoft 365, or some such equivalent change. This usually meant I got to help the client through the process of changing DNS records, migrating inboxes, or just backing up emails, and even actually setting up some stuff on the Microsoft side. Technically not my job, but the ISP's Tier 1 tech support was woefully untrained for anything even remotely technical, and terribly unprepared for most things merely commercial. And my company was awesome and treated me right. So, ticket. ISP, client is moving from Service X to Service Y. Please remove their subscription from the database. Me. There seems to be some sort of mistake, which was very common. We remove them from there once the new service is set up and running. Otherwise, it will delete everything in their subscribed package, including all email storage, DNS records, and website. You likely want to change their subscription to not include email services, but keep the rest, since your Microsoft subscription doesn't include DNS and web hosting management. And even that change only after they have their new email service set up. ISP, yada yada yada, confirm remove their subscription. Me, are you absolutely sure this process is not recoverable? All their emails, DNS records, and entire website, including database, will be permanently deleted. ISP, request has been submitted, remove subscription. At this point, it's been a couple of days since the first ticket, so I call my boss over, absolutely wonderful guy and extremely intelligent, and tell him what they are asking me to do. Boss says, alright, let's show them that they pay us because we know things and they don't. Don't delete the subscription, but suspend all the services that would be affected. Keep those tickets at hand and expect a phone call. If they call you, tell them to talk to me. God, that felt good. I mean, I felt bad for the client because their entire company basically shut down for an afternoon, but when they called my work phone directly from ISP, uncommon and usually just for emergencies. The nice lady asked me what had happened with client in the tone that says, I'm doing my best to hear all sides before making a decision, but I am freaking the heck out right now. And I directed her to the tickets where I very clearly stated what would happen if I did what they told me to, and then told her to call boss. I felt so vindicated. Boss later told me to let them sweat for a couple of hours because the process should have been unrecoverable and then turn the services back on. ISP was, yet again, absolutely thrilled with us, and my name kept coming up more often as the person that solves things. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called NJD. It says, the good old scream test. Never actually delete anything, just shut it down or disable first. Wait to see if anyone screams, then turn it back on. OP responded and said, I eventually learned this trick, but there weren't too many situations like this one. If, however, they asked me to do stupid stuff that only affected them and not their clients, I usually let the full weight of their decision to not train their reps properly fall on their heads. I feel like there was an opportunity here for OP's company to make a lot more money in this case. They could have shut everything off, and then when the client came to them going, oh my gosh, we need that back, everything's just gone, they could have said, well, it's very difficult to bring that back. So there's going to be a data recovery fee, and it's going to take a little while. You'd also think that the other end would be looking at what they're asking OP to do when OP responds and says, are you sure you really want to do that? I don't think enough of us actually take the time to analyze what we're actually asking when somebody asks us to confirm. This story comes to us from D-Day YT. Happy birthday! I was a bookkeeper for a company that celebrated employee birthdays once a month. It was the receptionist's job to get the cake and ice cream into the break room for the monthly celebrations. We went through a lot of receptionists. Most of them deserved to be terminated, but one of them was at the top of her game and the best one I'd worked with in years. She was fired the day before the monthly birthday party. I was upset that she was gone. Not only was she efficient, she had a hilarious sense of humor that kept everyone laughing and happy. I was even more upset that I had to stop working on a report to hop into my car and get a darn birthday cake for some stupid birthday celebration. Do you see where this is going? When I got to the store, I requested customized writing on the cake. The look on the owners' faces was worth it when they opened the box before they put the candles on the cake. Happy birthday, bitches! I was excused from getting any future celebratory cakes. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called RJ's Regorianiek. It says, you wrote that and didn't get fired. Makes me wonder what the heck all the receptionists, the amazing one especially, did to get promoted to job seekers. OP responded to this one and said, personal cell phone calls while the office phones weren't being answered was what pushed them out the door. The one I liked voiced her opinion, and the owners didn't appreciate it. The rest of the staff quit within 3 months, myself included. I was always introduced by the operator's manager as our crazy bookkeeper. I'm a fixer. They had a nightmare bookkeeper for years, and I got their records back on track. And I don't do cakes. Again, another missed opportunity. That receptionist was fired the day before the birthday. OP could have just said, oh, the receptionist must have ordered it. I just picked it up and didn't look at it. I mean, what would they do? Fire the receptionist again? They're already gone. This story comes to us from FalseFilm2952. Rotten fruits and vegetables. This story happened to a friend of mine, not myself. So I have this friend who worked different jobs, from construction to a factory worker to a personal driver, etc. At one point of time, he was hired as a car driver by a local businessman. On paper, his job was to either drive some employees from downtown to the business place in a nearby industrial area and vice versa, or do some courier work for the business, a normal 8-hour job. But reality turned out to be different. This business person wanted to use my friend as much as possible, doing all kinds of jobs, and calling him at any hour of the day, not respecting neither the agreed upon functions nor the time. One day, my friend finished his shift in the afternoon and went back home to have a rest. His employer called him an hour later and asked him to head to his house, businessman's house, as his wife needs him to run errands for her. My friend didn't argue and headed to see the businessman's wife. She gave him a list of groceries to buy for her. What my friend did was going to the market and picking the worst fruits and vegetables he could find and taking them to the lady. She got a packet full of rotten tomatoes and bananas. Apparently, the lady made a fuss to her husband, who called my friend, complaining about his bad shopping skills, and told him he would never send him again to buy him anything. He learned a lesson the hard way. Clearly, my friend didn't last long in this job, as his employer kept on calling him out of work hours to do some courier or driving job for the company while not paying him for this extra work. He quit. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Contrantier. It says, "Why did you buy a bunch of rotten fruit instead of fresh fruit for my wife?" Oh, I was exhausted from running errands all the time for you, which isn't in the job description you gave me at the beginning. After I finished my shift, I went home to rest, and you woke me up in the middle of my nap to make me work more. I was tired because you don't respect my limits, so I wasn't really at my most focused while shopping for your wife. I learned fairly quickly that if you don't go and get something for yourself, you can't guarantee that what you get is going to be what you want. Case in point, ordering food from Walmart online and then going to have it put in your car for their curbside pickup. If you order fruits and vegetables, there is no guarantee that the person picking that stuff from inside the store knows what they should be looking for as far as freshness, or even gives a crap that they're giving you good stuff. Another point in this story though, OP's friend was right to quit if they weren't getting paid for all the extra time that they were put in. Your time is valuable and you need to be compensated for it, regardless of what they're asking you to do. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.